September 21st work session to order. Have our roll call.
District 1, Mr. Guffey. Present. District 2, Mr. Venable. District 3, Mr. Miller.
Present.
And District 4, Mr. Ledwell.
Present.
Chairman also present.
Have a board president, have our invocation. Mr. Ledwell, invocation?
I don't care.
I have an invocation from Mr. Ledwell and a pledge from Mr.
Dear gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity for us to be here. Father, please give us wisdom as we try to go throughout the day with all these options that's available on our agenda. Please help us and guide us that we may do what's pleasing to you and serve the people of this county. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item is approval of the agenda. We have one item under working or public comment. I'd like to move that to the discussion item just in case there are any questions or comments. So the working bridges, if we could make that number 1 on discussion items, and then the rest will move down accordingly. Any opposition to that? Okay, any other changes besides that? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the agenda with that change?
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Okay, so no one else has signed up to speak, so we'll go straight into discussion items. And the first item is Working Bridges Group, and I'll just hand it over.
Well, I have some handouts. Let me pass these around. I think there should be enough. There's 5 there. I have some extras. Let me introduce myself. I'm Julie Bowers. I'm from a small town in Iowa of Montezuma. I am a 4th generation contractor. My father passed away just after the beginning of our working with the Comer Bridge Foundation, but he would be very pleased at where our company is today, 5 years later. We have a sole source contract with the state of Delaware, and we are fully insured and with general and full liability through Lloyd's. It took the specialty insurances to get us where we are, but we are fully prepared to do a sole source contract with the state of Delaware's DNR on a planned public-private partnership utilizing historic bridges. And the largest of those is 300 feet. It came from the city of Portland that sold us to us for $1, and we'll transport it later this year or early next year. So our experience is growing since we started this project with the Comer Bridge Foundation. And I just want to be clear that I am here on behalf of working for and with the Comer Bridge Foundation and all the people that have helped fund this project. We're at the 2-minute offense. I'm just going to pull straight out with the football reference. There's no time left. I talked to HRI on Friday. They will be issuing the contracts for demolition early next month, October. Early, late, don't hold me to it. In October, they are going to be signing contracts for the demolition of your bridge. In the meantime, after our last meeting here with the city, where they said that they wouldn't go forward without some sort of working with the county, we stopped and regrouped and asked for a economic impact study on Jackson County and Scottsboro, which you should have all received a copy of. It was done independently by Anthony Dixon, a PhD out of Troy University. He turned it around rather quickly. We wrote the grant for that National Trust grant in less than 3 days. We had it in, and we were accepted a month later. We hired Dr. Dixon, we got the money, we got it started, and those have been paid off. So the question about raising the funds, Comer Bridge Foundation is current and has no need to raise funds unless we move directly into a project. And that's what we're here today, is to offer a plan to the county where we could work directly with you to build this resource. And we spoke to Matthew the other day that said, you know, 500,000 just isn't gonna cut the risk factor. So if we take $1 million of the demolition funds, put that straight into an investment bond that eventually could carry interest back to the project, we have the ability to start the planning and the engineering on this project. We have the government entity that was a request of Director Cooper from AlDOT, which you could be the direct owner and lease it directly to us for X amount of years, whatever you want. We hold 99-year easements in Iowa on a bridge that was given to us by a county. So, or sold to us $1, they gave us $80,000 to repair that bridge. We are growing. We're looking at this $3 to $5 million project in Delaware. We know that it's trending up. I sent you an email earlier, Matthew, on another state's bridge where they got $2.5 million from DOT to preserve it for the trail crossing. This is a $12 million bridge, really, if you look at it. Probably more if you look at it in terms of what it's cost over the years. Replacing that with some kind of anything isn't ever going to happen. So you really have a structure that they call structurally deficient and functionally obsolete. All that means is it can't carry the traffic of today, and none of you want to go across it two-way anyway because that's scary because of its width and the height. So you actually have a structure that has really great potential to be real estate. I drove over it right before this meeting because I do that often. And it seems to me with the way that the approaches have now been finished and looked at, there may be no need to take that trail across to Dock Street. So that could leave the city to develop their own land over there. It would take a lot out of our budget if we didn't have to cross the slough. It allows the development of that corridor on Veterans Drive. And I think some of you heard me, I talked to the Chevron owner who says they've made $100,000 in the last 4 weeks with Sunday sales, with 25% tourism. The impact study said 79,000 visitors annually. If they all put $20 into going to the bridge with a toll, a soda, whatever, a t-shirt, $20 is pretty low to be going out onto that structure. You have the ability, or we'd have the ability to bring in $1.5 million a year. Very basic services. That gets us across to the other side where we have to continue the trail. Would be lovely if AlDOT would just say, we can put a bike trail on this side. That would be the best bet. And most people will stop at the end of the structure and come back. So it's not that the traffic is always going to be going across. That was a requirement of the Coast Guard. Any questions? If it's going to survive, it's going to survive with all of you and your vision for the county and what it could potentially bring. Heritage tourism is a big deal.
What kind of construction has to be done to maintain the bridge initially?
Paint. There were a few places where the guardrail has been broken, a few places where our craftsman said he'd like to go back in and do some work on the steel. But essentially it's in great paint, it's in a great shape. The paint would be encapsulating paint, and that would be done by a slew of people and equipment, jobs and materials. Partnering with our nonprofit allows us to go into a very aggressive fundraising campaign, and we showed you a budget the other day, and you questioned why advertising would be on the income side. And that would be because of the naming rights to the trusses, the advertising on the flags that would flutter above it on the towers that are still there, the potential for the development on either end. And you have a park underneath the two new bridges. People are already going there to fish. So you have some land on that side. If we didn't have to go over the slough, we save a lot of money.
That's where the $1 million, where you're saying now $1 million held in reserve? Is that how you save the money, just put that $1 million in reserve?
Well, if we put the $1 million in reserve, we start slowly and we start making the money for the planning, the engineering, getting the lighting and the security gates. That's really the construction. I see that having security gates so it can be shut down on either end. A lighting system, security, again, maintenance and jobs is really the biggest budget that I see for our company, plus whoever would facilitate the vending operations.
I see where y'all propose maybe even a restaurant, things like that, but how would you propose you get sewer and utilities to
The
this?
city has agreed that they would provide that upgrade to Dock Street. It was always in their planning. And the water board, we were gonna be pretty light on the land out there if we did utilize Dock Street. They hold, it's not a lease, it's another word, a license on that land from TVA. TVA doesn't have a problem with us operating there. It would be under their standard marina license, even though it wouldn't be a marina, it would be like that. They've been out there and said, oh, James Curry, oh, this is your $1 million view, when he stopped in the middle. It's a pretty easy walk. In Poughkeepsie, New York, the locals are vying to see who can walk their bridge every day, get a badge at the end of the year. I do believe there's a toll system. I don't think it would have to apply to Jackson County people per se, make that a perk. And then you have the land trust and the trail. And I have talked to their executive director many times. Their board of directors, after our last meeting when she was here with the city, just said no. If their local and regional politicians don't want a part of it, we're not gonna try to influence that. However, if you make the choice to say yes to the bridge, if you look at the numbers just based on their trail, they're whooping it up in their boardroom because they know their trail is gonna make a difference. And Huntsville to Chattanooga. It's a huge opportunity. You have about 2 weeks. And I'm sorry it took us so long to get back. And I didn't know until Friday that, I didn't want to know that quite. Because Justin keeps saying, we'll fight until it's demolished. We'll just keep trying. But this is it. You won't have to see us anymore unless we're going to partner together to create something really remarkable that will last generations. It's not without its costs. We've tried to minimize the risk as much as possible. And I'm so glad you don't have to vote today, because I'm going to encourage all of Scottsboro and Jackson County to get out and read the local papers and also the Chattanooga paper that really came out with quite an article based on, if the Comer Bridge is saved, it could bring capital to a county. And if you guys are the owner, then there's a percentage of revenue that's coming directly back to you. That's a pretty good deal. Any more questions?
I don't have any at this time.
I think everybody got a copy of the feasibility study. Is that right that you dropped off? So that was in your boxes last week, I think, when I dropped off. So a little more information in that, I guess. And we'll take a look at this and see how we need to proceed.
And I don't believe I'll be back here next Monday. I'm on my way to Delaware where we have a big project going on there. But we would be, the next step after that would be to write a letter to Director Cooper and tell him that the government entity has stepped up and that we would like him very much to waive the $5 million that he asked for a cash reserve in lieu of the $1 million in the investment, which should carry everybody's risk for the removal of the bridge. And Working Bridges will stand by that, and we'll have that evaluated every couple of years to see what we need to have to remove it. But it was built to last. It really was. Just a little too small for as big as it is. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.
We'll get out of your hair then, so that.
Questions or comments? All right, thank you. The next item on the agenda is regarding board appointments. These, you should have the list of all those that have applied. Those that are currently on the board, it has stated beside them whether they request reappointment. I think we talked about doing this next week on the 28th. So any questions or comments on this? And everybody, I think, will be prepared to do that next Monday. Okay. Next item is the commission office organizational chart. And this is, do you need a copy too, Bob, or do you just? Okay. So what you have here is your organizational chart for the commission office, and then job description for the positions in that chart. As we talked about, we're going through try to go through every department to get these org charts done. I think next month we'll try to work on revenue and sanitation. But this is kind of the layout with the job descriptions. We'll have a letter on the recommendations for those positions, and trying to think of anything else. I think that's about it. Again, we've talked about this a couple times before. We're just waiting to get these job descriptions put together, so we have an updated version of those. And we had a course last week, which gave us a little idea of how to better do that. So, any questions or comments on that at this time? The big changes will be that some of the payroll functions will be moved to the assistant administrator. We'll move some of those responsibilities and try to focus a lot more on HR and some of the policies that we're doing, and we'll kind of try that and see how that works.
So I decided to keep HR completely out of this.
Yeah, for the time being, I think to focus personnel on HR items, a lot of the HR things that need to be done, policies and others. Any other questions or comments? We'll put that for next week then. And the final thing is the budget, the FY16 budget. You need one of those bottles. All right, so this is the 2016 budget, and real quickly we'll walk through page by page what everything is. The first 2 pages is just the general summary. I think you should have gotten this on email over the weekend of the general fund. And the numbers on that, unless anything changes between now and next week, is a revenue of $7,189,692. So $7,189,692. And the expenditures of $7,169,736. So essentially a $20,000, just under $20,000 revenue to the good. That's with funding of jail and some other changes that were made, and with I think we talked about some of the reductions in the general fund or the commission office. So you'll take a look at the next page. It'll have the details on those revenues and then the details on the expenditures. Mr. Manning will get you a breakout of each of these codes. On the expenditure page, which is the second sheet on that stapled general fund, 51-100, 51-130, all those different accounting codes. We'll get that list to you so you know which department is which, but this is basically the breakdown for all the general fund departments, salaries, so on and so forth, all the detailed expenses for each of those departments, and the detailed revenues, which are essentially on the first page. So any questions on any of that so far? And then after that, you've got the revenue and expenses by department, Fund 111. You have Fund 100 in here, Bob? Okay. Yeah, we'll get Fund 100 afterwards, if we can do that real quick after the meeting. Okay. So Fund 111, revenue expenses, Fund 112, which is the, goes into the general fund. That's basically our general fund dollars, actually gets transferred. Fund 116 is our capital improvement fund. This is the oil and gas money that we get. You'll see that a portion of that is obligated, and that's for the A-trip. That's where we're paying the A-trip out of. So that's where that obligation comes from. So there's a little bit of dollars for some capital improvement there available. And then each department after that, outside of the general fund, several of them receive transfers, but you have the revenue expense sheet for each of those. EMA, jail, sanitation, and the park. So, any questions at this point on these items? There's obviously some good reading material for the week, and if you have questions or comments through the week, or, I think this is pretty much, this is all the detail. The only one, the general fund, might be a little bit combined, but if you want to see any department separately in the general fund, we can print that out. It is listed, like I said, there, but to have a clearer picture, if you just want to see that department expenses, we can get a copy of that for you.
Which one is it?
That's that page, that's your revenues and expenses.
You must have to.
And you're gonna get a copy of Fund 100, you said?
Yes, we'll do that before we leave today, if Bill has got a minute.
Get that one, take just a second. Let's look at these copies.
I think that's everything. I can't think of any other funds that,
And that summary page on the front that he was talking about, that's just kind of an overview of that, of the thicker, the general fund part of the budget. That's just kind of a recap of about all the departments on the expenditures, that way you can kind of see where all those are at.
any questions or comments?
Copy this. One more little handout here. This is just a recap on the COA, RPT, all those funds that went in, and they're all just a washout, but I want you all to see the kind of the totals on all those.
Where did we put solid waste, the expected revenue for the roll-offs we just started?
So if you look at 511,
It's in there, roll
it's the
off.
second one on the revenue page, second.
Where is it?
The other hand, your other hand there. Second line item up there should be roll-offs.
We're just kind of guessing though, because we really.
Yeah, we've only had about
put a
3
year-
months worth of activity of those.
Based on the 3 months, we hope this is a little bit conservative. You never know, obviously, but based on the 3 months, and those 3 months, Daryl, those 3 months may have been some of the busier months, so we may see a lower number, but I can't remember exactly what we saw in that 3 months for you.
We're anticipating a bigger number than.
Right.
Than this.
Yes, we are. I mean, this is a conservative number based on just the 3 or 4 months activity we've had so far. But like Mr. Hodges said, we don't know if that's just because we hit 3 of the busiest months or, so we kind of wanted to be on a little conservative on that number there. But we did want to track it with a separate item,
I did the staple.
staple at the bottom, I think.
Oh, okay. Any other questions? You'll notice in the park too, we increased the amount of the transfer out on that, from the county park, based on, again, the revenues to expenses.
Last year was 100, wasn't it? This was recommended by the
Park.
Committee members.
Were you in on that budget meeting, Mr. Miller, with the park?
Yeah.
And Mr. Venable, I think, was as well.
So it's balanced.
Yep. It'll be our first balanced budget.
It don't come without some baggage though.
Well, I think the goal will be continue to this year work to find the revenues or find some way to increase the revenues so that we can get back to business. I think the thing we have to keep in mind, it is a balanced budget. That doesn't mean that we're done, because if no changes are made, then we'll have more cuts to make next year. So I think the goal has to be to find revenues and increase the revenue side as opposed to see it continually decrease. Any other questions or comments? Everyone will take any time time they need to review that. If you have any questions, like I said, Mr. Manning, myself, department heads will answer any of the, should be able to answer for their departments. I'm trying to think, was there anything else that had been changed?
You know, the last thing we were kind of going over was mainly the COA and the RPT, all those different funds, and
Right.
we're just kind of waiting on the contract information on those, and, but as I mentioned, the summary I just handed out at the end, that we have those balanced also, and
That's with their
that's with a
$20,000.
$20,000 transfer out of, to one of those funds out of the general fund, that's included in there.
Any other questions or comments? There are a lot of things, I know different departments looking at to try to raise revenue, whether that be the jail to try to help with the cost there, or some other things. Hopefully we'll see some of that stuff come up this year, and that'll help to some extent. Again, ultimately, we've got to come up with a big picture item too. All the little things we can do, we're going to continue to do. And as I told the department heads this morning, I know every department has cut in some form or fashion. There have been cuts across the board. But even going through these budget meetings this time, knowing that we're going to have to cut employees further, every department came to the table saying, well, we can reduce this here and reduce, this here. So everybody continues to see the importance of balancing our budget. And I would encourage all the commissioners to thank our elected officials, thank the department heads for the work that they've done, because they understand this, and they've done it with minimal fuss, I guess we'll say, but really everybody's worked together to work really hard to get this budget where it is. And it really, truly is a 3-year process. I mean, we've been working on this since we came in office, so this isn't, this balanced budget has not come overnight for sure. It's been in the process of 3 years, and unfortunately, we had to make some cuts we didn't want to make, but to be able to get here, I think, is an accomplishment for all those folks involved, the employees and department heads and elected officials that participate. So, I do encourage you all to thank them for the hard work they put into this. Anything else on that? All right, so that concludes the items on our agenda for this evening. So we'll move on to our reports. Mr. Manning, do you have anything else?
Yes, sir.
No, sir.
I would like to just reiterate what you said, and we will continue to find new revenue sources to get things back to normal as quick as we possibly can. That's my goal, and I think that's everybody's goal.
Not only get everything back to normal, but to hopefully progress forward.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Motion second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no.